Welcome to a new program about people who refuse to retire, Slaying the Dragon. Thank you, Roger, for joining us for some dragon slaying today.
It's my great pleasure. Let's kill him for what good and all, shall we?
You tried to retire in 1995, but then they reeled you back in.
Well, I didn't actually try to retire. Well, there's no such thing as retiring in television, in my opinion. Retiring happens when nobody rings the telephone and asks you to do another job, really.
You're actually the producer of the Easter celebration of Word and Song, so how much of an involvement do you have in that as the producer? Is that time-consuming?
Oh, very much so, yes. It's basically a presentation at Easter, on Easter Saturday, which, of course, is designed particularly to tell the story of Jesus Christ, the most dramatic and important moment probably in the history of the world, I would suggest. But we've done it in a way which starts off by becoming involved with the actual words of the story and then the music. And we are doing it in association with the Salvation Army, the Bible Society, radio station 2CBA. We've gone from the first year we presented this in St Andrew's Cathedral of about 125 people to last year 2 performances at the Sydney Town Hall, packing it out with 2,000 people in each. So obviously it's working.
Where were you raised, and did you always have your Shakespearean voice?
No, I didn't. I was raised in Peterborough, Northamptonshire, which is sort of Lower Midlands area, and most of my family had a Midlands accent.
Which sounds like?
Talks a bit like that, you know, slightly North Country.
Oh, I see.
A bit like that, and I went to the academy like that, and I was told, well, you can't very well be a Shakespearean actor with a voice like that now, can you?
What's your biggest blooper?
My biggest blooper? Well, actually, I think the biggest blooper of all occurred one night when we always have these animal stories at the end of the news. And this particular one was about a bull that had got loose in Redfern. And it was charging all over the place, and the police were trying to catch it. It was running through people's backyards, and it had people's clothing around its horns and the whole bit. In the middle of this, caper cop situation, the phone rings from upstairs. Roger, will you please change the back headlines? Will you change this to this, and will you do that to that? I'm busy writing all this, and in the middle of all this, the entire situation on screen changes. I'm unaware of it. Suddenly, a sergeant of police leans over the back fence and fires a double-barrel shotgun at the bull, who drops down dead. At that moment, they come straight back to me. I have seen none of this, so I said, oh, well, I guess you can't win them all.
That's fair.
Well, you can imagine the switchboard lit up like a sort of a Christmas tree, and everybody saying I was disgusting, they were going to report me to the RSPCA, they'd never watch my news again. That's about the best one.
The reason I'm doing this program is to help people who are young or old realise that they don't have to give up, they don't have to stop just because something, life or their own selves hits them in the face and they feel like giving up. They don't have to. And what would you say to people like that who feel like giving up?
I would say to people that feel like giving up, try to find something. Look outside yourself. There's always something you can do for somebody else, no matter what condition you're in. But I believe the people that succeed are the ones that can overcome that and can turn that defeat into victory. It's easy for me to say that. You may say, no, it's not. There have been occasions when I, like everybody else, I wanted to turn my face to the wall and forget about it.
Colonel Sanders was already retired when he decided to sell his recipe to a restaurant. He knocked on 1,009 doors before he got a yes. The rest is history, as they say. Lloyd Rees and Picasso were painting their best works at 90. Someone told me the chap who put the railroads across America was over 80. Our guest tonight, Ian Hutchinson of Life by Design, is a person who helps people find their dreams and make them happen.
So what I do is work with people, and this is what the seminar was about, to give them more ideas on how they can more clearly create a fulfilling retirement lifestyle. And there are a whole bunch of issues to do with retirees that people just don't recognise. I mean, retirement is actually the 11th most stressful thing in our lives. It's a really important thing to look at your interests. And just taking the blinkers off from our traditional thinking. You know, I can be a vet, I can be an accountant, I can be a doctor, and looking at more lateral thinking.
And I love the story about the soap opera. Tell us about that.
There was a lady who, her main passion in life was lying on the lounge watching soap operas, and you go, well, how can she make a job out of that? She actually then left and started up Soap Opera magazine and is selling millions of copies now.
Does Ian Hutchinson want to be another Anthony Robbins?
Oh, well, I think Anthony has some really good information and he imparts it. I tend to like to work with people more individually.
Life is a gift and we must give back. Those are the words of Sir Peter Lawler, a real-life knight in shining armour. At 79, an amazing and an extraordinary fellow. Here are some excerpts from that interview.
But work is a very essential part of life. I mean, it is more than just a job to be done. It's a gift to be given. It's the gift of yourself in the context where you happen to be. And that's true whether you're collecting the garbage or whether you're doing a heart operation at St Vincent's or the San, or whether you're running cattle at Scone.
60 you were knighted, and what were you knighted for?
Well, there are various answers I could give to that, and various answers people have given to it. But the official one was for public service, things I'd done in the government. 65 or 66, you classified yourself as retired, but did you really retire? Well, no, I had no intention of retiring. I intended to farm the farm at Braidwood, chase cattle up hills and mend fences and try and get rid of wild pigs and wombats and what have you.
Did you do all that?
Oh yes, we did all of that for a span of years. The farm was a kibbutz, it was a family thing, so all the family sort of helped and regarded themselves as part of it. And
You've still got your farm?
we had it for 13 years, but it was great fun. And if you climbed the mountain at the back, it was surrounded by National Park, and if you climbed the mountain at the back, you could see the sea, and you could see the tankers going past. But the last 7 years, virtually, I've been part of a group that's been trying to buy a university. For a group, a lay group, based in Sydney, Brisbane and Melbourne, we had a notion that we could establish a private university which would have a campus culture that was based on Christian values and Christian ethics, have a Christian ethos, a humanistic ethos, if you like, a Christian humanism. For those who wanted it, you know, we appreciate it wasn't for everybody.
If somebody came along today and said, I believe in your university and I'm going to help you make it happen, and I have the wherewithal and connections to make it happen, at 79 years of age, would you be on the committee?
Oh, heavens yes, of course I would. Of course I would.
And what do you
That's if the committee would have me.
How familiar are you with the old dragons that say, you're too old, you're too young, it's impossible, it can't be done? Well, welcome to a program called Slaying the Dragon. It's about people who don't seem to have the word retire in their dictionary. And today we have the privilege of speaking with Mr. Roger Climpson, best known for his work in Channel 7 as anchor for the news, and also This Is Your Life and Australia's Most Wanted. Thank you, Roger, for joining us for some dragon slaying today.
It's my great pleasure. Let's kill him for what good and all, shall we?
You told me, Roger, that you've been in television for 40 years, but you don't seem to have retired. at all.
Well, there's no such thing as retiring in television, in my opinion. Retiring happens when nobody rings the telephone and asks you to do another job, really.
I've noticed with the Easter celebration and Word and Song that you're doing, you're actually the producer of the Easter celebration of Word and Song. So how much of an involvement do you have in that as the producer? Is that time consuming?
Oh, very much so, yes. It's basically a presentation at Easter, on Easter Saturday, which of course is designed particularly to tell the story of Jesus Christ, the most traumatic and important moment probably in the history of the world, I would suggest. But we've done it in a way which starts off by becoming involved with the actual words of the story and then the music. So often you have a situation where the music comes first and they sort of fit the actual words around the music. We've done it the other way, and we are doing it in association with the Salvation Army, the Bible Society, radio station 2CBA, and we've gone from the first year we presented this in St Andrew's Cathedral of about 125 people, to last year 2 performances at the Sydney Town Hall, packing it out with 2,000 people in each. So obviously it's working.
You say in your letter to the churches, I look forward to working with the combined churches of Sydney as we once again bring the Word of God alive in all its power and glory at this special time. That doesn't sound like the words of a retiree to me.
There's no such thing as being a retiree in the Lord's work, that's for sure. I have a real thing anyway about the spoken word in terms of the Bible. I don't believe people read it nearly well enough. I don't think you have to be a Charles Lawton or a Laurence Olivier to read it, but you do have to have a talent and you do have to understand how to read it. And I believe that this presentation with a series of professional readers helps to prove that point as well. But in terms of retiring, I will keep on as long as I'm given the opportunity.
Talking about reading the Word well, you didn't actually start out in television.
No, I started out to be a Shakespearean actor in England. I managed to win a scholarship to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, much to my parents' puzzlement. And my father was a butcher. He couldn't understand why I didn't want to be a butcher, but I didn't like making sausages. So I applied for an opportunity to get a scholarship to RADA, which I did, and I spent 2 years there and was trained to be a Shakespearean actor, basically. But I discovered afterwards there ain't much money in being a Shakespearean actor, and there are too many better actors in England. So I came to Australia and became a radio actor, and for 3 or 4 years I did that. And then with the advent of television, radio drama died, and most of the people in the industry flitted away and became involved in other organisations such as insurance. And I guess I was very lucky. I managed to get a job at Channel 9 as a general announcer.
So those 40 years in television haven't been all with Channel 7?
No, I spent 9 with Channel 9, and then the rest of the time on and off with Channel 7.
And you tried to retire in 1995, but then they reeled you back in.
Well, I didn't actually try to retire. I was retired because I was suffering from prostate cancer, and I had a major operation at the end of 94, and unfortunately the recovery took far longer than was necessary, took longer than we expected, put it that way. And the result of this was that they couldn't keep on waiting for me to come back. People were saying, "Where's Roger? Why hasn't he come back?" So the alternative was to say, well, I guess we'd better pack it in. So I eventually made an announcement, which was one of the blackest days of my life, when you saw splashed across the Sunday papers, "Roger has cancer," and the phone didn't stop ringing for 3 weeks. And I decided that I guess that was the end of it. But 3 years later, I received a phone call from Channel 7 to say, "Look, do you feel well enough to come back and just do 13 episodes of a program called Australia's Most Wanted?" I said, "I'd love to." Well, the 13 programs became 102 episodes over a 2.5-year period, and we managed to sort of nail 250 people. So it was a great experience.
Was that more fulfilling than reading the news?
Not more fulfilling, but fulfilling in a different way. I mean, the news, I believe you are giving the happenings of the day to the people sitting out there at home. And I believe that you should do this as a friend. And my philosophy has always been that in somebody's house, your heading close-up is virtually the same size as if you were sitting in their room. So therefore you do it as a friend. And if you say Mrs. Smith has just had a baby, you do it with some pleasure. But if you say 15 people were just killed today in a car smash, you do it with deep concern. I don't mean as an actor, but you do show emotions as a human being, going to somebody's house, telling them what is happening in the news of the day. That was the pleasure there. The pleasure with Australia's Most Wanted was the fact that you felt that you're doing some community good. There are so many people frustrated and frightened in this country of ours because of the growing crime problem. And I just think that by being able to get out there and help those people, it makes them feel a bit easier. I've had people say to me, oh, Mr. Climpson, don't go on holiday at Christmas time, or if you do, put somebody else on temporarily, because if you're not there, who's going to catch the criminals? This is a far-fetched example, but it's a true one. And I think that the program, in terms of the general public and the police, has been of enormous help.
So you've done quite a bit of dragon slaying in your time. With the prostate cancer, there was also a foundation that you set up.
Yes, having had prostate cancer and having realised how little was known about the disease and how little was being done about it, and the number of Australian men who were being affected by it, it's the second greatest killer in this country. Just as the ladies in terms of breast cancer did something about that, I thought something should be done about prostate cancer, and those of us that have had it should stand up and say, yes, I've had it, and I'm going to do something about it. So in association with Rotary, we set up the Prostate Cancer Foundation of Australia, which is now a national organisation and is receiving a great deal of funding to find answers to prostate cancer, and it's starting to work.
That's fantastic. And you lend your image and voice to a lot of good causes. This one is Opportunity International, which helps micro-enterprises in third world countries. And did you enjoy doing that video?
Yes, I did. I think because I could identify with what they are doing, particularly having done 3 videos over the years for World Vision, and having been to some of the places that Opportunity Knox talks about and is trying to assist. I do understand the poverty and the misery of third world countries. And I believe that until you've actually been over there and seen it, you cannot comprehend it. And when you come back, you say to yourself, what am I worrying about? I'm thinking about, can I buy a new car next year?
Exactly.
Or can I move? They haven't even got enough money to buy a new pair of shoes.
And this passion and commitment you have, can I ask you how old you are?
Yes, I'm 68.
68. So you see, there you are, a dragon slayer, and he's not quitting yet. One thing that you're also passionate about is 2CBA FM, of which you're the chairman.
Yes, 2CBA is a Christian broadcasting station, Christian Broadcasting Association, 103.2 on the FM band in Sydney. It is entirely a Christian radio station. It's a station which I would say is a Christian radio station for non-Christians, if that makes sense. We don't try to Bible bash. We don't try to grab people by the throat and say, you've got to become a Christian. We simply play nice music, and we give, we hope, suggestive remarks as to how life can be easier. And we know that it works by the number of people that ring up over the night hours between, say, 12 and 5 in the morning. People that ring up and say, I just happened to turn your station on, I couldn't sleep, my husband's in jail, my daughter's on drugs, or whatever it may be, and I just happened to like the music and I've stayed with you, and I've also got to appreciate some of the comments you make, which are Christian comments, Christian seeds, if you like, or Christian hooks. That's what we're about.
I noticed the program, or the advertisement for People Who Care. Was that one of your initiatives?
It was not mine. It was the initiative of the predecessor, Reverend Vernon Turner, who started it. We are endeavouring to develop that because we find that the number of calls we get is growing. I believe this city is in severe strife in terms of so many people, and without trying to sort of get into a slanging match with many radio stations, I believe all they do is to give you an aspro to try and stop the pain, not to find the answers to the symptoms. We're trying to find the answers to the symptoms. That sounds like a very brave statement, but I mean in a Christian concept.
So do you get involved in thinking up new schemes and initiatives, or is it mainly this new administrative sort of role that you're looking at?
Well, I think the administrative role incorporates that, trying to find new programs, new ideas. Yes, one is involved in all of it, and as a matter of fact, I find this a very exciting new area to cover. I mean, it's one thing to sit in front of a microphone and read words. It is another to produce the programs that allows those words to be given. So therefore, it's an entirely new occupation for me.
So it's a way of caring for people, yet again, a different way that you've than you've done before.
I believe that radio is the most powerful means we have of caring for people, even more than television, because I believe that people can listen while they're ironing or sitting or doing all sorts of things. With television, you've got to watch. Now, I also believe there are so many people that would never dream of going into a church. It's just sacrosanct to go into a church, but they will listen to that message in the privacy of their own home. And that is what we're depending upon. And we're not trying to make Christians in 5 minutes. We're simply trying to show them the advantages of what a Christian philosophy can have. If they don't want, well, I guess they haven't got to listen.
So the year 2000, from 1995, the last 5 years has mostly been with this 2CBA FM, or were you working with them before
yes,
that?
Yes, I've been a member of 2CA for the past 16 years.
16.
But you can say that really the last 2 or 3 years have been the major changes. The 20 years prior to that, the CBA has been on the air for 21 years now. The previous time, I think, was virtually a building up process. It takes a long time to get the resources to make a radio station a real station. It is a community service station. It was the very first one to get a license, but it's a broad community service. It's for the whole of Sydney. So I can say that for the last 5 years, yes, we really started to try to turn this radio station into something that really matters.
And I also get the feeling that while other people at 40 are hanging out for 55 and 60 to retire, that thought hasn't actually crossed your mind.
No, never ever. I couldn't imagine what retirement, whatever that word means, is for. You must do something. And I think that as you get older, it is important that you find things to keep you thinking outwards. It's when you start thinking inwards, I think that you start having problems. If you keep on finding things to drive you outwards, you haven't got time to think about being old.
And especially helping other people, being those outward things.
Yes, but may I say, helping other people is a challenge in itself. I think it's a challenge to you just to get on and try to find the answers to help the other people. You see the subtle difference I'm trying to make there? I really believe the things that I am doing now are the things I have been, as it were, directed to do, and I think they're enough. There's another problem. You can also overload yourself, and I've learnt this the hard way. As you get older, there is no question that your ability to absorb stress becomes less. And I believe that if you take on too many things from an important position in that organisation, I then believe that they can combine themselves into such a stage that, frankly, it doesn't work and you succeed in nothing. So do 2 or 3 things and do them properly.
Good advice for all of us, I'd say. When you decided on television as a career, did you have any particular ambitions, or as you were saying before, radio was dying, so you were lucky to get the job? But then when you got the job, did you start to get ambitious for your work?
Yes, I did.
Or did you think also to be a light in the media for Christ in that?
No, I must admit I never thought to be a light in the media for Christ. I thought basically, how can I earn a living for my wife and children? And I became involved at the very beginning of television, when television was a lot of fun. We were all learning at the same time. And if things went wrong, okay, we had a good laugh about them and worked it out. Today, if things go wrong, memos fly all over the place and someone's liable to get fired. It's lost its innocence, if you like. And I thoroughly enjoyed doing everything, from sort of, reading the news to doing commercials to becoming involved with the Bobby Lim Late Show, which was the first variety show on 9, and doing everything from being a Red Indian to a German Gestapo officer to running outside doing the commercials. The whole thing was live, of course. I mean, you had situations where, on occasions, I remember on one occasion we were having a duel. Bobby Lim was at the top of the stairs and I was at the bottom, and we both fired and the side of the set fell out. And this is all live on air, and you've got to get out of it. You've just got to keep on going.
I understand reading the news is a bit of a live wire experience as well, especially at 5 to 6.
Live wire always at 5 to 6. News is something that you can never relax with. I believe the success of an anchorman or a newsreader, call them what you will, is the ability to imply that there's no problem. Because I can assure you that virtually for 90% of the news, there is a problem. For example, in many cases, you do not get the news, the first item, until about 10 seconds before you go to air.
That's scary. necessary?
Well, that is because they're constantly updating that story, and you appreciate the fact that you are in direct competition with the opposition, the other commercial station that has the news on at the same time. So therefore, everybody till the last second is trying to get one-upmanship on the other. That's pressure. And the final thing is that if something does go wrong, and there's every chance that it can, they can put in the wrong video into the slot and the wrong piece comes up, or the auto cue rolls the wrong piece of information, the auto cue, of course, being the words that are rolling past you. If either of those things happen, those people do not cop it. You cop it. You are where the buck stops. You're the one that looks stupid.
You have your written notes as well as the auto cue, don't you?
You have exactly the same words written in front of you as on the auto cue. But you will appreciate that if you're reading things off an auto cue, which is on the camera, and suddenly it stops dead or goes backwards, which it can happen, or it's the wrong words, you then got to somehow smile, turn over 2 pages, work out where you should be and just carry on. That is very hard.
What's your biggest blooper?
My biggest blooper, well, actually, I think the biggest blooper of all occurred one night when we always have these animal stories at the end of the news. And this particular one was about a bull that had got loose in Redfern. And it was charging all over the place, and the police were trying to catch it. It was running through people's backyards, and it had people's clothing around its horns and the whole bit. In the middle of this, caper cop situation, the phone rings from upstairs. Roger, will you please change the back headlines? Will you change this to this, and will you do that to that? I'm busy writing all this, and in the middle of all this, the entire situation on screen changes. I'm unaware of it. Suddenly, a sergeant of police leans over the back fence and fires a double-barrel shotgun at the bull, who drops down dead. At that moment, they come straight back to me. I have seen none of this, so I said, oh, well, I guess you can't win them all. Well, you can imagine the switchboard lit up like a sort of a Christmas tree, and everybody saying I was disgusting, they were going to report me to the RSPCA, they'd never watch my news again. That's about the best one.
My goodness. Have you ever got to the point where you've been fed up with television?
Yes, I have. I think everybody gets to that stage. You get tired. I think the pressures of television must get to you. The pressures of this every night, 5 nights a week, grueling sort of hope to goodness I can get through tonight situation does continue all the while. And added to that, you've got publicity meetings, you've got photograph shoots, you've got people that want to interview about last night's news or what you're doing, etc., such as you, yes. But when all this is on top of reading the news, and you don't get the normal holidays that other people get, I mean, you just get your holidays at the end of the year. Easter makes no difference. How many times have I read news on Christmas Day, which rather takes the pleasure out of it, because you can't even
Christian particularly.
Well, you can't even have one drink. Even as a Christian, I like a drink, but you can't have one drink till 6:30 at night till you're finished.
When you're preparing for the news, though, you do get to modify the words to your own style?
Oh, yes, you do that. As many scripts as you have a chance to look at, of course. There are something like 10 or 12 writers for a news bulletin. They write all the actual items, but it's all then funneled to one person who is your personal writer, who writes the way you speak. I mean, many people may not realise that no two people speak the same way in terms of the sort of words they would use or the rhythms of their voice. We all have rhythms in our voice, and they're all different. And if somebody writes a series of words that don't fit your rhythm, you're liable to fall, flat on your face and make several mistakes in one line. So you have one person specifically to write your scripts for you.
That's used to your style.
Yes, but even then it still comes to you and you still make other changes.
I rather like Mary Kostakidis's presentation on SBS. I think she looks very relaxed, but yet elegant and poised.
Well, I would suggest that SBS would not have the same pressures. I would suggest, speaking without a book, this is just an opinion, I would suggest that because they are not trying to compete one-on-one with another station, they're probably far more relaxed in their approach.
The whole company culture.
Yes, and also because they're giving international news. They're not specifically limited to Australian news. That's very good. I think they're superb the way they do their international news.
Have you ever wanted to do anything like 60 Minutes?
You mean to be a reporter?
Yes.
Not particularly. Having done 3 trips overseas with World Vision, as I mentioned earlier, to some of the worst places in the world. I think that what those guys do is fantastic. I admire their courage and their strength of character. I remember being in Hong Kong when the Vietnam War started, making a documentary, and the feeling that was there that it was quite possible that China could move into Hong Kong at that stage. I didn't like that. My feeling was I'd rather be home. I think I'm too much of a coward to do a job like that.
I read in the book that they were all jammed into a little cottage and virtually only had a desk to call their own. What was it like? Did you get star status privileges at 7, or were you?
Well, when we first started news at Channel 7, which was, as I say, about 3 months after television began, we had a 6-legged table with 4 legs, I remember. 2 were missing, and if you hit the table hard, one of them would probably fall out. It was a place where you couldn't swing a cat. Nobody even had a proper desk. You had a little tiny alcove somewhere, and at the far end of the room they were actually replaying lining up the actual film for that night, because in those days it used to be film. And the interesting thing was, often you would find in the middle of reading the news, one of the splices would break and the film would come apart. And you had to ad-lib until they could take the film off the reel, take it to somewhere, splice it together again, put it back on the reel and find the right place. That was a bit of a tour de force, I could assure you, especially when sometimes it would happen 2 or 3 times in one news. So in other words, it was not a glamorous situation in those days. It was only in the last 15 years, I would suggest, that suddenly the news division became something of importance. In fact, I even remember on one occasion the director of news, who was new, going upstairs to the powers that be and asking if it was possible to organise for all the cameras to be the same sort, because they were different sorts of cameras that required different types of film, different lenses. It was impossible to have anything which was the same. And he went up there to ask, was this possible? He was told in no uncertain terms, if I had my choice, we wouldn't have a news division, and you were down in the bowels of the earth where you should be, don't come and worry me.
I also read that it's pretty terrifying for these guys to meet with Kerry Packer. What moguls did you meet with?
I met with Kerry Packer, and I had the pleasure of working with his father, Sir Frank Packer, who people often had the same impression about. But having got to know Sir Frank Packer, I found him an absolutely charming, wonderful man. He was a man that if you told him the truth, there was never any problem. But if you tried to pull the wool over his eyes, you were in big trouble. Kerry I only knew from the days when he was a cadet at Channel 7, and I was working in the upstairs booth there at night till 2 o'clock in the morning, and he sometimes would come and sit beside me and pour out his problems in relation to what he wanted to do with his life.
Well, look at him now.
Yes, look at him now. Yeah.
How important have your family, your wife, your church life been to your success?
My wife has, without question, been the wind beneath my wings. There's no question about that. Without her, I would have achieved nothing. She has put up with a great deal supporting me. I have my moments. I can be very difficult. I can get very frustrated. And she's always accepted that, and she's always supported what I do. So without her, I would have been in big, big trouble. As for my family, they have always supported me. And I hope we have succeeded in ensuring that they do not regard Dad as being anything but Dad.
Well, I was wondering, how was it for them to have a famous dad?
Well, they didn't regard me as being a famous dad. They regarded me as being Dad. And I remember one of my children at school being asked one day by a fellow student, what's it like to have Roger Climpson as a father? And the comment was, well, he's just Dad, which I thought was marvellous.
Fantastic.
In relation to my church, yes, the church has been very much a direction to my life, not specifically in relation to what I do on television. Television I've regarded as a different entity. I find it very hard, I have always found it hard, to try to talk Christianity to people on television. It is not a terribly strongly Christian-oriented organisation or media, and therefore only on the occasions when people have occasionally come to me and asked for my opinion have I done it. But in terms of my own life, I think it's kept me sane. I think I would have gone insane otherwise. I think I'd have gone completely off track. It's very hard not to believe in your own publicity, you know. You tend to believe sometimes that what the media says about you when they're nice is true.
So your friends at church kept you humble?
Yes, they did. Not just my friends at church, but the Lord God Almighty kept me humble. I hope.
Well, I see you as a righteous person, a light in the media, and even if you don't see it yourself, I think by just being you, you have been salt and light in the industry, and that's my perception as just an audience, a viewer, a normal person on the street.
Well, thank you for that.
What sort of challenges have you faced in your life other than cancer? Have there been major issues like that you've had to work through and go over and around?
Yes, financial issues where I made a major mistake in my life in a financial investment. My own stupidity. I wouldn't listen to anybody. I knew I was right. I was determined I was right. And I made a major miscalculation and lost a lot of money. The thing was really not the losing of the money. It was the effect it had upon my ego. I couldn't believe that I could do something like that. And I realize in retrospect, over the years, I strongly believe it was one way that the Lord took me and shook me till my back teeth rattled. And I feel honoured that he should have taken the trouble to do that, because if he took the trouble to do that, he must want me for some reason.
He cares about every little thing, doesn't he?
He certainly does, yes.
And so how do you get through these challenges, illnesses, financial troubles? What's your secret of rising up and coming back? I mean, the cancer thing didn't slay you, you slayed it.
Yes, I think it's a question of taking one day at a time. I think it's also a question of saying, well, you believe in the Lord, let's see what he does. And can I just digress there for a second? I think one of the greatest experiences I had was when I was lying in bed having had the prostate cancer operation, because you don't know for a few days how successful it's going to be. You don't know whether you're completely rid of it or whether you've still got a problem. You just don't know. This is the stage we're still at with prostate cancer. It's an amazing experience to lie in bed at 10 or 11 o'clock at night in a hospital bed, staring at the ceiling because you can't sleep. It's amazing how it brings things to a focal point that you say, in effect, Lord, what is my future? Lord, all I have got left now is to depend upon you, which I was told to do in the first place, but like everybody else tend to run away from. And that I find, when you get those experiences, they are the most important of your life. It's not necessarily the good things that improve you or change you or shake you. It is the bad things that happen and how you react to them. So I believe
God works all things together for good to those who love the Lord.
Well said, that's perfect.
And are called according to his purposes.
Perfectly correct.
And you felt called at each stage?
Yes, I did. I felt refreshed and recalled. It was because of the experience of the prostate cancer that I really became involved with the Bible Society, because Tom Tressiter from the Bible Society took the trouble to come on a number of occasions to see me. He was a friend beforehand, but he took the trouble to come and see me and talk about things that probably we could do later on, one of which was talking about celebration of word and song. In other words, it does all work for good in the long term.
Part of the reason I'm doing this program is to help people who are young or old realise that they don't have to give up, they don't have to stop just because something, life or their own selves hits them in the face and they feel like giving up. They don't have to. And what would you say to people like that who feel like giving up?
I would say to people that feel like giving up, try to find something. Look outside yourself. There's always something you can do for somebody else, no matter what condition you're in. Maybe if you've had a serious accident or have a major problem, and I can understand that there must be tremendous amounts of bitterness, but I believe the people that succeed are the ones that can overcome that and can turn that defeat into victory by doing things for other people, helping other people with a similar problem, saying to them, look, you can overcome it if you really concentrate and try. Each of us, I believe, has a target and an objective of some sort. Often we can't see it when we first receive a problem, but I believe that in the long term we can turn that defeat into victory. It's easy for me to say that. You may say, no, it's not. There have been occasions when I, like everybody else, have wanted to turn my face to the wall and forget about it. But something inside me, I think it's the Lord Jesus Christ, has stopped me. I believe that's the most important thing. Try to find a cause, and don't judge me if I'm making it too hard for you.
And certainly don't listen if people say you're too old to start a brand new career. Because it's just not true. Many of our consultants for lifestyle counselling tell us to eat organic food and exercise an hour a day would be right. Now, Roger, are you into health food or exercise?
I walked about 5 kilometres twice in my life and hated it. I don't agree with that stuff. Okay, I've now upset half the audience. I don't agree, because I think the most important thing is to be content. And if you're worrying about, am I eating the right food, am I walking far enough, checking your watch, working about your blood pressure, I think that's a tension-making thing. If you've never been used to being a physical person in that sense, why suddenly at the age of 50 or 60 or whatever start being it?
In fact, one of the chapters in the Bible says, be anxious for nothing, don't be anxious for nothing, like several times in the same chapter. Is that perhaps a key to longevity and health?
Maybe it is. Maybe it is. I never really thought about it that way, but you could be right. But I think the longevity to health has a great deal to do with who your parents were, how long they lived to. And I know that I also know that modern medicine is having an enormous effect. I mean, if I hadn't had the radical prostatectomy operation in 95, I'd probably be on the way out by now. So therefore that adds to it. But whether in actual fact this whole business about making physical perfection or physical comfort not comfort's the wrong word, but physical exercise, I should say, the most important be-all and end-all, I don't know. I don't think it is.
So you had a parent that was a butcher, so you obviously ate a lot of meat in your life as well.
That's probably why I got prostate cancer. Right. I wouldn't be at all surprised.
That one in there. Talking about your parents, where were you raised, and did you always have your Shakespearean voice?
No, I didn't. I was raised in Peterborough, Northamptonshire, which is sort of lower Midlands area, and most of my family had a Midlands accent.
Which sounds like?
Talks a bit like that, slightly North Country.
Oh, I see.
A bit like that, and I went to the academy like that, and I was told, well, you can't very well be a Shakespearean actor with a voice like that, now can you? How could you play Richard III with a voice like that? So gradually, the man's name was Turner, and I think he actually used to assist the late King with his stuttering, of course. Anyway, he was our main teacher, and over a period of 4 months, I suppose, I was at the academy for 2 years, over that period he literally took my voice apart and laid it out in front of me like parts of a car and said, keep this piece, keep that piece, throw that piece away, replace it with this. And after, I suppose, 5 months, I couldn't say 3 words without stuttering. I thought I'd go mad. And only by gradually sticking at it and having the confidence in him did I eventually get a Southern English accent, because this is mid-Atlantic, they call this. In other words, you can go to America and be acceptable there just as you can here or in England.
So it was a very specific accent that you were training
Very
towards.
Much so.
And
Very
it could have
much.
been a range of accents.
Well,
he chose that one for you, for your personality?
No, everybody learned this, because the argument being that if you want to do dialects, whatever they may be, how can you do a dialect if you haven't got a sort of a completely clean blackboard to start with? If you've got false sounds to start with, how can you change them and superimpose on that other sounds? This was the theory anyway. So eventually I ended up with a mid-Atlantic accent, and the only time it ever comes back is if I get really cross.
All right.
If I do my stack, watch out, because I start going back to this Midlands accent.
What did your parents think about you becoming an actor?
They couldn't believe it.
How old were you when decided to be one?
I was 17. They couldn't believe it. I said, I want to be an actor. They said, what? My father said, no, you should be a butcher and take over the butchery shops. He had a whole string of butchery shops in England. I said, I'm not interested. I don't like making sausages. So eventually we came to an agreement that if I could win myself a scholarship to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, they'd agree. Now, what they didn't know was I had a contact who actually was a lecturer at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art who said, you come to me, if I get you in, you pay me 50 quid. If I don't get you in, you pay me 10 quid. And he had all the right sort of approaches. Right. So I got a scholarship.
Have you been a Christian all your life? Were your parents Christians?
Yes. I sang in the local choir and Paston Ridings Church in Peterborough. We used to have to wear little white collars with a black tie, you know. On one occasion I remember my parents asked the local minister, how is Roger singing? Oh, he sings like a bird, he said. He never defined what sort of bird he was talking about, though.
With your parents, did you read the Bible together as a family? Or
No, nothing like that.
what about you with your children? How did you input your faith to them?
I think basically I did this through Sunday school more than through me. Yes, I certainly used to read them stories at night from special little books about the Bible, but I did not make a point of trying to ram it down their throat. I thought if they're interested, they will find out. And I think, it may sound strange, I believe it was far better for them to learn through going to a Christian school, which of course they all went to, and also through Bible classes, than through me. That's how I learned. I was never sort of confronted by, now we're going to sit and read the Bible. We never did that.
You said to me earlier that your favourite program out of all of the ones you've done was This Is Your Life. How long did you do that program for, and why is it your favourite?
I did it for 4 years, nearly 200 episodes of it. It was my favourite because you really saw people the way they were. You saw people having fun. You saw very emotional moments. You saw people making up in relation to broken family quarrels. You also saw very quickly that everybody, no matter how famous they may be, has an Achilles heel and is nervous and also is frightened at times. I always remember, particularly as an example of this, Rolf Harris, standing behind, waiting for the doors to open for us to walk in. I'd surprised him, and we'd taken him back to the studio and waiting for the doors to open to walk in. You could hear the hum of this audience out the front there, and he was pacing up and down like a caged lion. I said, what's wrong, Rolf? I said, I'm terrified. I said, come on. I said, you spent your entire life in this industry. You've appeared before the Queen at Royal Command performance. What are you frightened about? He said, the difference is on those occasions, I was totally in charge of the situation. I ran it. I knew what was going to happen. He said, in this case, it's you and it's all in that book. And I've got to jump as high as you asked me to jump with the book, and that's what's frightening me. Of course, once he got out there, he was absolutely brilliant. The thing is that they don't realise, because they don't think about this, that there is no way you are going to introduce anything onto that programme which could be harmful or embarrassing to them. Because if you did that, the audience would kill you. They're watching because they want to see the happiness and the human side of this person. In fact, there have been occasions when there have been, shall we say, skeletons rattling in the closet, that they've cancelled the programme because we feel that some things could be presented which would not be right, and we also feel that if the guest of honour, and I believe this still applies, if the guest of honour finds out that they're going to be surprised for the programme, we cancel the programme because we think that even the greatest actor in the world cannot really give a true indication of the surprise you get when somebody walks up and says, Joe Bloggs, this is your life.
And regarding ethics and morality, did you when you say we decided whether to pull the program or not, was that you as well?
Not really. By we, I suppose I mean the company. It was basically Lifetime Associates, the people that in those days were the producers of the company.
Many people in their jobs face ethics and morality issues. The boss wants them to do something and they just know it's against what they believe in. Have you had to confront those?
Yes, I have, particularly in news from time to time. When somebody has tried to write a story from a Christian perspective and turn it into a bit of a joke. And you've been able to switch it around? Yes, I have said, I'm sorry, I will not read it like that. And on no occasion have I ever met an argument. But they've accepted. The way you've just said that then, that's how you would speak to them? Yes. On no occasion, look them in the eye. I would say to them, I'm sorry, but I'm not prepared to read it like that. That's not right. That's sending the whole thing up. It's a serious story. Let's treat it as a serious. And they don't argue with you? No, they've never ever argued. Any other issues? Any other perhaps murder stories or? There's only one. The story that's always stuck in my mind as the one that caused me the greatest emotion was when Lord Louis Mountbatten was blown up on the Irish coast in a little fishing boat by some Irish patriots, call them what you like. He for many years was the man that I idolised. I thought he was an incredible man. And to think that he should die in that way, in such an ignominious way, when he'd come through the war, you know, as a destroyer commander, as admiral of the fleet, that he'd actually been the last viceroy of India, and all the things that he'd done, to be blown up in a little fishing boat while on holiday, my brain just couldn't conceive of this. And that night when I had to read that story, I think it's the only time in my entire life that I wanted to bang the table and turn to the camera and swear and say, you... Whatever, you know. It's the only time, and I had great difficulty in resisting it. And I think that's the only time, and I've read some terrible stories which have affected me, but I've never ever been quite as affected
But
as
were
that.
there some stories that you felt that you just couldn't read? You said, I'm not going to read that because of ethics or morality issues?
No, I don't think so. I think we've always found a way to rewrite them.
Right.
We did never, I must admit that it's changing today, but I think news is still pretty good. Sexuality context has changed a lot, even in the 6 years since I finished reading news. But that never became a problem. It was always handled in a diplomatic way, and there were never any problems with it. I've never struck people trying to send that up as a news item, no.
And I'm collecting sayings from all these famous people. And how does Roger Climpson define life or success in life?
I suppose I'd probably say two things. First of all, never ever expect to get as much out of life as you're supposed to put into it. And secondly, aim for the stars and you may hit the moon. I don't believe that doing what I do is a job. It's a wonderful way of life, and I thank the good Lord for giving me the opportunity to do something which has been a challenge and a delight, and for giving me sufficient talent to be able to carry it out and still find it an enormous challenge every day of my life, and I still find it that way.
I think it seems to me that if you're looking for a way of not giving up, is one thing is to find your talents and really go for it. Like Roger at 17, he decided that that was it. He wanted to be an actor and he found a way. And over his life, he's explored all sorts of other ways of communicating his passions, of how to help people, how to care to people, using his talents, using his gifts. So Roger Climpson, it's been a great privilege to speak with you today, and I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for the questions and for the time. It's been a great pleasure, and thank you too.
Our guest tonight, Ian Hutchinson of Life by Design, is a person who helps people find their dreams and make them happen. Hi Ian, thanks for coming to speak with us tonight. What kind of people come to see you?
Well, it's probably, let's look at the midlife crisis here. It's probably about 50% over 45 and about 50% under 45.
And why do they come to see you?
It's a whole number of reasons. A lot of it is because they feel like they should be getting more out of life, but they haven't perhaps got that yet. Maybe they're not happy with the work they're doing, but they don't know what sort of work they should be doing. Or it's a matter of life and balance, life and work balance. And just trying to find time to do the things they really enjoy in life, but a lot of people don't even know what they really enjoy in life.
How many of these people are actually in a depressive state when they come to see you?
Well, hopefully when they come to see me, none. But actually, the population at the moment, there's been a 58% increase in depressive drug usage over the last 3 to 4 years. And one of the reasons for that is there's so much change happening in society at the moment. People are almost getting swept away with all the things that they now have to take on board. Changing workforce, changing technology, all these sort of things being bombarded by change.
Is what people spend on you seen as an indulgence or a necessity?
I think most of them see it as a necessity because they're just not happy in life and they want to get more out of life. But there is quite a big percentage who are thinking that, they're reasonably happy with life, but they know that there's more they could be getting in life. So in a way, that's possibly an indulgence.
Do they come to you because they feel they're not leading successful lives? And what's your definition of success?
It's important to first of all realise more about who you are, become more aware of who you are as an individual. Then once you know that, what you want out of life is much easier to work out. And then once you know what you want in life, the steps to get there are actually quite logical. They're not easy, but they can be very logical. As far as success in life, I believe success in life, and I've spoken to a whole range of people from truck drivers, CEOs, Buddhist monks, I believe success in life is about being as happy as possible. And that might be easy to say, but the trick is, what is it that actually makes you happy?
With life moving so fast, is it possible to achieve happiness?
I think it is, as long as you keep monitoring who you are and what you want out of life. And that does take time, and I think a lot of people don't spend enough time on what they want in life because they're getting swept away by the day-to-day routine of life.
With the triangle, the 7-tier triangle that you've developed, how many people actually realise that health has to come at the top?
Well, for everyone it's different. I mean, those 10 areas of happiness, I call them, which are really the key life priorities, they're almost the recipe to baking your cake of life. Now, everyone will have a different recipe. So for some people, health will be number one. I have lots of people who don't even have health in their top 5 categories. So it's different horses for different courses.
Right, so a lot of people come to you, they're quite healthy, they're quite fit, but they just need a new direction and they don't know how to get there.
For some of them, it may well be purposeful work is the thing that's really letting them down, and they're not throwing enough energy into that, or perhaps it's spiritual, or it's creativity, or it's financial independence. So it just depends.
How many people put family at the top?
Look, everyone is different. I mean, family can always be up there, but I see quite a lot of single people who, in these times of society, family isn't as big an issue as perhaps it was in the past.
Do single people have more success and get better results quicker than people with families, or do people with families in a support group do well?
Well, although family and social support groups are very important, single people can actually make changes quicker than I believe people who are in couples or who have families. The reason for that is if you want to make a change in your life and you're in a family, the change you make will have an impact on your family, your wife or your children. So therefore, changes that are going to impact on other people in life need to be made at a slower rate possibly than single people who can just take all the responsibility on themselves and just change whatever they want in life.
Why are people more aware these days of the need to get more out of life?
Because I think people are becoming tired of all the change that's happening. There's increased technology that they're trying to keep up with. There's changing in the workforce. In the next 5 to 10 years, only 50% of jobs are going to be part-time. There's this huge redundancy factor coming along. All these sort of things constantly bombarding us, and us having to keep educating ourselves with new change. So because of this, people are getting more stressed and anxious in life because, our parents or our parents' parents were living a much almost simpler life. They knew that they would start a job at 19, perhaps as a banker, and retire at the same company at 65. Whereas now we might change jobs 5, 7 times. So constant change is actually stressful on the system. So people are now going, well, I can't cope with all this change anymore. What do I do? So we're now having to go back within ourselves and work out who we are better so that we can then work out what we want more clearly.
You've just spoken at a seminar alongside Paul Clitheroe to retirees. Tell me about that.
Well, what the theory with that was is retirees and people actually working with financial planners spend a lot of time working on their finances and how they can plan their financial future. But unless you know what you want to plan your finances on, how do you know how you can more accurately plan your finances? So what I do is work with people, and this is what the seminar was about, to give them more ideas on how they can more clearly create a fulfilling retirement lifestyle. And there are a whole bunch of issues to do with retirees that people just don't recognise. I mean, retirement is actually the 11th most stressful thing in our lives, but people think it's to do with freedom and time, which it is, but unless you plan properly, that can actually all fall down. And in fact, males over 75, there's been a 50% increase in suicide rate for males over 75, and a lot of that's to do with because of social isolation and because of sense of helplessness and all sorts of things, so it's good to plan.
What motivated you, Ian, to start Life by Design, and how did the Thredbo disaster affect you?
Well, my last corporate job was actually working with Thredbo Ski Resort, and in my whole corporate history, the last 10 or 15 years, I've seen a lot of people who were successful in their jobs but not fulfilled in life. So seeing a lot of people throw all their time and effort into their work but not enjoy life. And really work should be something that hopefully that you enjoy and something that you can get benefit from so you can enjoy the rest of your life more so as well. So it frustrated me seeing people who weren't totally fulfilled in life, and I thought, you know, what a great way to get out there and start helping those sort of people. The Thredbo tragedy, yeah, I mean, I used to live in Bimberdine Lodge. The guy that moved in after me was unfortunately lost in the tragedy. But I knew, you know, most of those people, and I know their passion for life, and I know that what they were doing in Thredbo they really loved doing. So it's really about, you know, I don't think the tragedy in life's necessarily dying. It's about making sure that you actually live with the time you do have.
Does Ian Hutchinson want to be another Anthony Robbins?
Well, I think Anthony has some really good information and he imparts it. I tend to like to work with people more individually and work with their specific needs. Anthony Robbins likes to work with bigger groups, and I think it's much more effective for people to work with them in smaller groups because everyone is very different. I like to work with people very specifically, individually, and trying to have a really rich involvement in their life. I think a lot of what Anthony does is work with seminars of 1,500 people, where I think he can, you know, communicate some of his information, but I think he leaves people very revved up and motivated, but not knowing exactly what they're revved up and motivated about.
So you actually have a technique and a methodology of exploring skills, interests and values and personality type that he doesn't have or he doesn't use? Well, or that yours is unique?
Well, the process that I've developed is I've developed it myself.
You have?
Yeah, and over a number of years I've found that works really well. But I think the key is working with people individually, working with people specifically, because everyone's different.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add, that you'd like to talk about Life by Design that we haven't covered already?
Well, I think it's also very important to look at financial aspects, and that's increasingly, our whole society is conditioned to material wealth, and I'm not sure that that's you know, the way we should necessarily be driven.
So you don't need a lot of money to have a great lifestyle?
Well, I think it's a matter of working out how much money you do need, and most people haven't even worked that out. So what I encourage people to do is actually cost out their ideal lifestyle and budget it, but also cash flow it, so they know when their money is being spent and how that money is being spent. Most people, they need less to live on than they really expect. So I find a lot of people are out there chasing the $120,000, $150,000 a year job, but really they only need $50,000 or $60,000 to live on. It's just that they haven't worked out how much they need to live on. And this financial drive is stopping them from really living the life they want, because they're constantly just chasing the dollars instead of the life.
People come to you expecting results. Do they get them?
Well, everyone's different, because some people make very small changes, which can make a huge difference in their life. Other people make very big changes. Recently, I had someone who's a publisher who just left, and their passions in life were sailing, dolphins, and running educational courses. And they just took 9 months off, and they're now sailing around the world with Hugh Trahan, who's the tactician for Australia too, that won the America's Cup. So they're learning to be a sailing captain with him. They're writing development courses, and in the process they're actually spotting dolphins. So they're combining all their three passions in one.
And I love the story about the soap opera. Tell us about that.
A lot of people with their interests in life don't believe that they can make work out of those interests. There was a lady who her main passion in life was lying on the lounge watching soap operas, and you go, well, how can she make a job out of that? She actually then left and started up Soap Opera magazine, and is selling millions of copies now. There's heaps of stories like that. And a story I like is a guy who loved puppets and drawing. It wasn't one of my clients, because 40 years ago he was the inventor of Mr. Squiggle. But by combining two different interests in life, you can actually come up with some really rewarding work that's satisfying for you.
And it's this combining that you help people discover.
Yeah, it's a really important thing to look at your interests and just taking the blinkers off from our traditional thinking. You know, I can be a vet, I can be an accountant, I can be a doctor. And looking at more lateral thinking, because in the year 2020, the forecasts are that 70% of jobs haven't been invented yet. So there's going to be constant change, and it gives us the opportunity to almost create our own jobs as things change.
Ian, your definition of success is to be happy. What makes people happy?
Well, being happy is a very basic definition, but what is it that actually makes people happy is the real key. There are 10 areas of happiness, things like health, financial independence, love relationship, family, spiritual contribution to society, intellectual growth, all these sort of things. And it's a matter of getting people to identify what are their top 5 of those 10 areas and then focus in on what they want out of those top 5 areas. And if they're not putting enough energy into those top 5 areas, they're not going to be feeling happy. And in fact, they're going to probably be feeling stressed and anxious in life. So it's important to identify what are your top 5 areas of happiness and how can you get more out of those areas. And we do that by developing little mission statements for each of those, strategies and action steps, logical action steps, so they can actually get more of what they want out of each of those areas and then ultimately become happier.
And what stops people making the changes?
There seem to be a whole range of reasons, but the 2 main ones that keep coming up are number 1, social. And it's this thing called comparison levels in psychology, where we're constantly comparing ourselves against other people that we know or other people in society. You know, success in life is about wearing Chanel clothes and living in a mansion and driving a BMW. Well, that might be what you know, a guy you went to school with is doing, but that mightn't make you happy. So we get trapped sometimes by following what other people want in life rather than what we want in life. So there's this social block. If you're a lawyer, for instance, and you want to become start up a flower nursery or something, well, all your colleagues are going to go, well, you're dropping out, you know, maybe you're not feeling as though you're successful, but in fact you're following what you want.
I understand you're now working quite intensively with the financial industry. Tell us about that.
Well, the financial planning industry is growing in Australia, and what they're finding is that they're spending a lot of time on actually working out how people can maximise their money for their future, but they're not spending enough time on why they're planning for that money in the future. And the reason they're planning for that money in the future, I believe, is to build a great lifestyle. And so it's very important to first of all work out what is the lifestyle you want, how do you want to live your life specifically, and then how much money can financial planners then help you plan for to achieve that lifestyle.
Ian, how old are you?
I'm actually 37.
And you look 10 years younger. What's the secret of your eternal youthfulness?
I don't know that I have one. I think I've just got lucky genes. My parents look fairly youthful, and I try and have a happy and fit, active life and do what I love doing in life.
So you'll still be powering at 60?
I hope to be well and truly powering. I hope to be still working in this area because I really love it. Love the beaches and the mountains and the outdoors, so I hope to be you know, still playing lots of sport and that sort of thing, and doing a bit of travel, and hopefully having a nice Labrador dog that can sit on my lap every now and then.
Thank you very much for your time tonight, Ian.
Thank you, Krista.
And all the best with the work that you're doing. If you want to contact Ian, the phone number is running across your screen now. Thank you for viewing tonight, and we look forward to seeing you next week for some more dragon slaying with some members of the Silver Generation. KRISTA ELLIOTT for livewires.com.au. Catch us on the net. Good night. Welcome to a new program about people who refuse to retire, Slaying the Dragon. While so many 30 and 40-year-olds are burning out and giving up on life, there's another side of Australia that perhaps you're unaware of. Over the coming weeks, we will be interviewing men and women whom society say are too old to be useful anymore. These live wires are told they should leave work and go sleep on a beach or potter around the garden. But we'll show you a host of people who have way too much energy and enthusiasm for life to just stop. Our guests will disarm you with their stories and encourage you to ignore everything except what your heart is telling you to get up and do or be. We'll be speaking to psychologists, lifestyle counsellors, sons of TV personalities, and famous businessmen. We'll be getting inside the hearts of as many facets of the diamond of life, from ambassadors to small business owners who just refuse to retire at 60. For them, life has never been so good, and they're expecting more. Yes, Australia's silver mine, real grey power, ordinary people who have extraordinary stories to tell, extraordinary people who will inspire you to give it all you've got. To paint a background of what it's like to not be a grey power livewire, I'll be talking to Ian Hutchinson of Life by Design, who counsels people in life transition and those who don't have the zest I've just been speaking about. That is, until Ian gets a hold of them. The Bulletin ran a story in January this year which said that in a few years, the wealthiest generation of this century, the baby boomers, will enter into an orgy of self-indulgent spending that will make the 1980s look tame. Social and economic forecasters are looking to the early 2000s and seeing the third and largest economic wave of the baby boomers, when the amount they spend on themselves will defy history. The boomers' first wave came in their teens, when they were kids, and they spent. The second wave saw boomers in their 30s, during the 1980s. They had jobs and they spent. The third wave is starting now and will climax in 2010, when boomers become empty nesters, have zero debt and embrace the growth industry of the next century, recreation spending. Research shows that the 45 to 60 age group does not want to go and lie on a beach. They want to go somewhere and achieve something, and they're prepared to pay for it. And they will pay for the image that goes with it. 64% of Land Cruisers, worth $90,000, are bought by 35 to 55-year-olds, and most of them are driven by women. Many of the books that you see today on motivation cite examples of people who do not give up. Here are some to encourage you. Abraham Lincoln failed in business at 31, was defeated in a legislative race at age 32, failed again in business at age 34, overcame the death of his sweetheart at age 35, had a nervous breakdown at age 36, lost an election at age 38, lost a congressional race at age 43, lost another congressional race at age 46, lost a congressional race at age 48, lost a senatorial race at age 55, failed in an effort to become vice president at age 56, lost a senatorial race at age 58, was elected president of the United States at age 60. Thomas Edison, after he tried 9,999 times to perfect the light bulb and hadn't succeeded, so when someone asked him, "Are you going to have 10,000 failures?" he answered, "I didn't fail. I just discovered another way not to invent the electric light bulb." Colonel Sanders was already retired when he decided to sell his recipe to a restaurant. He knocked on 1,009 doors before he got a yes. The rest is history, as they say. Lloyd Rees and Picasso were painting their best works at 90. Someone told me the chap who put the railroads across America was over 80.